the admissions specialist here at ADA. And I'm super excited for you all just to be able to join us today and learn more about our program. But for the agenda today, we'll just be giving a quick overview into our program, what you can expect as a student and an applicant. Then we'll go ahead and have some prepared panel questions. We have a great panel of cohort 14 and cohort 15 students with us today. So we'll be able to kind of hear from them what their experiences were like going through the program. And then once we've gone through the prepared panel questions, we'll go ahead and open it up for a general Q&A session. And so I just ask that you hold on to your questions for the end, just in the case that your questions are answered throughout this program presentation in the beginning. So to start off, we are a nonprofit tuition-free coding school for women and gender diverse adults. However, we primarily focus on serving Black, Indigenous, Latinx students, members of the LGBTQIA community, and low-income people. We believe that diverse teams will create more effective work cultures and innovative products, and we strive to build a tech industry that is representative of the population that it serves. And just some things to keep in mind, and that is that we are an 11-month program, and at the end of this program, you can expect to become a software developer. Just a couple of eligibility requirements we do have. First one is you must have permanent US work authorization at the time that you apply to our program. This is due to the nature of our relationships with our partner companies. We're unable to accept anybody who does not have work authorization. So make sure that this is something that you can provide proof of should you receive acceptance into our program. Secondly, you must be at least 21 years old and you have to be able to participate for the entirety of the program. So the classroom portion of our program spans across 6 months, and then the paid internship will span for 5 months. Some potential disqualifiers I do want to go over. The first one being underqualified for ADA. Our program is not for people who are brand new to coding, so you should have some kind of self-study under your belt. That being said, you do not have to be an expert. That's why you're applying for a program like ours, right? But keep in mind that, if you've never done coding whatsoever, our program is not necessarily for you right at that moment. We do expect some sense of self-study or dabbling in coding and some projects, and we can talk a little bit more later on in terms of what that level will look like. Second is being overqualified for ADA. This would be something like if you have a bachelor's or a master's degree in computer science, if you've already attended a full-time coding bootcamp, or you've already worked as a developer to some degree. Those are all qualifiers that will probably put you above the level that we expect of our applicants and will make you overqualified for ADA. Third is an incomplete application. Please make sure to read all of the instructions in our application. Even if you are a reapplicant, we just want to make sure that you don't miss a portion of the application and get disqualified as a result. Make sure you read everything so you're providing all of the information that we ask for. And lastly, if you're already currently enrolled with a higher education institution, keep in mind we are a full-time program. We believe that students will have their best chance of success if their attention is undivided. And so if you're a student and you have a graduation date of, let's say, 2022, make sure you're indicating your willingness to switch over to ADA somewhere on your application. That way we know, oh, this person understands that we're a full-time program and is willing to make that switch. Next, I'll talk a little bit about the process of the application. Along the top are the qualities that we're looking for. So the first one is we definitely want to see some kind of passion for software development. And then we want to see aptitude or desire for learning, right? The tech industry is constantly changing. And so you're going to be constantly learning. So if that is something that you're driven by, that you enjoy, then this is definitely the program for you. Something else that we like to look for is investment in social justice, diversity, and inclusion. There's no denying that our tech industry is very saturated with one type of person. And so, how will you change that and make sure to create a safe space for all of those that have been left out historically in terms of access to opportunities to enter into this industry? Next is grit and composure under stress. While our program can be a great opportunity for people who are looking to become software developers, there's no denying that it will be hard, it will be difficult, and I'm sure our students will be able to tell you that for sure from personal experiences. So, can you demonstrate that you're willing to push through, that you're willing to get to the end goal and persevere now to become a software developer at the end of the journey? And lastly, an ability to work with others. You're going to be constantly working with others in the ADA program, even if it is online. You're going to be paired with your cohort mates for group projects. You're going to be pair programming with each other, with tutors and TAs and mentors later on. You're going to be working with your instructors, your companies, your managers. So even if you may not necessarily have the same working style or may come across disagreements, are you still able to demonstrate that you're willing to work with people to get, you know, your work done? So everything in our application process is asking you to demonstrate these qualities. Keep that in mind as you're going through. So along the bottom, you'll see here, this is what the actual process will look like. Phase one is the application, which is where you will submit your resume. We'll also provide 4 to 5 short answer or short essay questions. So you'll submit your essay answers there and a data challenge. With the data challenge, we're not necessarily looking for correct answers, but we're looking more for your thought processing and your logic. So make sure you read the instructions when you get to that data challenge to really hone in on what we're looking for. Secondly is phase 2. If you pass if your application passes phase 1, we'll invite you to complete a coding challenge that has been written by our instructors where we ask you to build a tracker of some sorts. If your code challenge passes, we'll go ahead and invite you to the technical interview where you'll actually sit with an instructor to discuss your code challenge. Should you pass the technical interview, we'll go ahead and invite you to the final phase, which is the final interview. Here, we invite you to speak with our staff, our alums, and community partners just to get to know you and determine your readiness to start at ADA. Now, just a quick call out, the application for cohort 16 will open March 15th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and it'll be accessible on our website. You'll be able to see all of the instructions there and all be able to submit all of your materials there. Our application will close and all apps will be due on or due by April 5th at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about what we're doing differently for cohort 16. So, cohort 16 will be our largest class yet. We will be accepting 96 total students. And how that's going to work is we're going to accept 48 students for a Seattle based class and 48 students for a completely online class. Now, it's a little bit tricky because of our condition right now with the pandemic, but the idea is that this Seattle class would be in person and have an internship based in Seattle once it is completely safe for us to, reopen. However, the online class will remain completely online and have an internship that is online as well. And so what you'll see is in the cohort 16 application, you'll be able to choose whether you would like to be considered for a Seattle class or the online class. But we'll also be providing a third option, which is the either. And this means that Ada will make your placement for you with your best chance in mind. You will not get to choose your class or request a change. So please only choose either if you can fully commit to either option. So let's say you chose the either option and you're offered acceptance into the Seattle program, then the expectation is that you will be in our office when class starts and once we have reopened. So keep in mind that while you know, either maybe a more of a flexible option. Should you receive acceptance, we expect you to follow through in whatever class that you're offered acceptance into. More instructions will be provided in the application regarding this split. So, as a student, I want to talk a little bit about the classroom experience. It'll be split into three major themes. The first being you'll learn obviously how to write code. You'll be learning the fundamentals and the languages that we teach. Secondly, you'll get a taste of what software engineering looks like. So, what does test driven development look like? What does pair programming look like? Once you get towards the latter half of your classroom experience, we'll start getting you ready for the industry. So, networking practices, career readiness, things like that. And the last theme is social justice and advocacy. We're bringing a lot of different intersectional identities into one room. So, we provide that training to make sure that it's a safe space for everybody involved. We want to provide common shared language and expectations that we want to see from our students to make sure that everyone is welcomed and can therefore be their best self as they're learning. I will go a little bit over the student support you can expect while in the program. In terms of academic supports, you'll have no shortage of tutors and TAs that are available for you. We have so many awesome volunteers who are willing to give their time and provide extra support around academics. So, those are options that are available for you while you're in the program. Similarly, we try to provide interpersonal supports as well. So, for example, we have these things called ADA pods, which are smaller groupings we provide to connect you with other students in your cohort. And so, especially as our classes get bigger, we want to make sure you have opportunities to connect with other students in smaller, more meaningful groups. Also, we provide more professional supports as well. For example, we have industry mentors and AD mentors. Industry mentor is just an industry professional who wants to mentor you as you go through the program, while an AD mentor is an alum. And so they'll be someone who's a little bit more understanding of what you're going through because they've also gone through the program themselves as well. And we'll provide interview coaching once you start getting towards interview week and once you start looking for full time offers. And I do wanna talk that or I do wanna call out the financial support as well. We provide loan options for those who will have to cover living expenses during the time that they're in classroom. We are tuition free, but we understand, basic living expenses are still can be a barrier for people. So we provide 0% interest loans for students who may need that financial support. So all of that information is provided in your onboarding experience once you are accepted into the program. This is just a quick overview of our cohort 15 class, which was our most recently accepted class. So 41% are part of the LGBTQI community. We have 72% students of color, 43% are underrepresented minorities. We have 43% who are out of state, and that's definitely increased, probably due to the fact that we're now offering online options. We have 90% of our students who are low income, 29% who are reapplicants, and 43% who applied for the loan. So this is just kind of a quick overview of what our C14 or C15 class looks like. Regarding the internship, I will say from the beginning, you do not get to choose your internship. We'll go ahead and make that placement for you based on interview week, which is where you will interview with 6 companies that we match you with, and we will make your placement based on your performance in these interviews, instructor feedback, your preference, different things like that. Once you are placed into an internship and you start, we like to provide space at ADA for you to come back. So we'll provide continued fundamentals learning and career readiness once you start getting ready for graduation and full-time offers. So this is, an opportunity for you to kind of come back to ADA throughout the week. And so you're not just kind of out there on internship island all on your own. And lastly, we do provide employment support as well. Once you're a graduate of the program, you'll have access to support such as company introductions, mock interviews, interview loops with partner companies, continuing education. All of that is provided for you once you become a graduate because we're invested in making sure that you succeed and have that full time offer once you graduate. Just wanted to show a quick overview of the companies that we've worked with in the past who have taken interns. This is, of course, not at all exhaustive of every single company that we've worked with, but these are just some companies that you may see as potential partners where our interns will go. And lastly, I do want to talk a little bit regarding post-program metrics, but we have a 95% placement rate, which is the percentage of students who had full-time jobs within 180 days of graduation. We have 50% conversion rate. Conversion here means it's the student who decided to stay with their interning company. So as an intern, once you reach the end of your internship, if it was a good fit, your company may extend a full-time offer to you. However, it is completely up to you whether you want to accept that full-time offer or look elsewhere. So 50% of our students decide to stay. We see an average salary change of around 143%, and the average starting salary of our graduates is around 117,000 per year. So you may be thinking, okay, well, I'm interested, I want to get started, but I don't know where. I want to point out two resources that we have on our website. The first one being our ADA Build curriculum. This is an introductory course that was created by our instructors that will kind of go over the basic fundamentals we expect you to know when you apply. And this will help because our code challenge is actually based off of our ADA Build curriculum. So definitely give that a try. And secondly, we have a practice test that's available on our website in the same tab where it will mimic what you can expect should you make it to the coding challenge. So this will be available until the application opens. So once you finish your ADA build, once you finish going through the ADA build curriculum, go ahead and give the practice test a try because it will kind of give you an idea of what you can expect in phase 2 for programming, and when did you know pursuing a career in software development was for you? You may have answered this in your intro, so feel free to chime in as much or as little as you like.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start this one off. So I actually was very fortunate in high school that I was on the robotics team. So it was like, some of you may be familiar with it. It was called First Robotics. And I only took part in the building because I was told that girls aren't allowed to do the coding. All the guys, it was all guys on my team. So I only did the building. And so even though it like interested me, I didn't feel like I could do it as a career. And I did try to switch careers in college and was basically told the same thing: is this isn't a field for women, like our department is all men. And so it wasn't until senior year of college I left because I was working full-time too. And I started coding in my free time. I started teaching myself because I was tired of being told I can't do something I really want to do. And so I went on YouTube. There's tons of resources, Udemy, and I wanted to do this but didn't know how to get my foot in the door. And I mentioned it to a friend, and my friend's like, oh my gosh, there's this program called ADA that's an hour from you, and you need to go look it up right now. So that's when I knew it was possible, and that's when I knew that this is for sure what I wanted to do. And I would definitely advise anyone applying, like, know for sure this is what you want to do, because it's very hard going through the program. It's very rewarding, but it's definitely not something you should do if you're not sure about if you want a career in programming. So yeah.
Well, to me, I think similar to what you mentioned, that I didn't even knew that career in tech existed when I was in college. My family came to this country as a refugee immigrant, so I went to high school here and college in Portland State. During college and high school, I didn't even know there was a software engineer or career in tech existed. So I really had no idea of like how to get there, or like, what the profession would look like. And because I didn't have anybody that I could look up to. And I think that's the case in most of the people, like especially women of color in tech spaces. So after college, when I was working at nonprofit, I was working with a lot of community member, and especially immigrants and refugee community member. sort of helping to develop a 501c organization. And at that time, I remember we had to build a website. And because, you know, in nonprofit, we have very limited funding and we couldn't hire a software developer or web developer or designer to build a website. And I just kind of took up on myself to research and learned about WordPress, and then, you know, started building a website for the community members. And that was the first introduction of like some sort of technical stuff for me. And that was way like few years after college. And during that process, I not discover, but found out Khan Academy. There are a lot of practice tests you can do, like in JavaScript, HTML, CSS. And I remember doing that. I usually work long hours in nonprofit, and I came home and I usually would do that just for fun. And after a while, I sort of realized, oh, this is actually fun. I want to learn more about it. So what can I do? And similar to what Heidi mentioned, that came June, like during COVID, like beginning of 2020, I just kind of started thinking, what's next for me? Where can I go? And I started looking into programs, and you know, I found out about ADA and applied to MARTS. Didn't really get in, you know, applied again in September to be able to get in. So that's when I, you know, was interested in software. Yeah.
Sharing that.
I'm gonna also add a point in here. Something it's kind of like made me realize like why are pursuing a career could be for me. It's like so when I was working on like finance deals, and I remember everyone in my team used to be so stressed out, like because we had such a short turnaround of when to get things done. And I just remember how stressed out I was. But like, and I compared that kind of stress to when I was like trying to get into ADA, and then like when I was learning. So after first try, I didn't get in. It was specifically because the tech code challenge, I wasn't as ready. But then I started learning Python on my own for like 2-3 months. I was just following courses online, and I just remember like I was stressed because I feel challenged, but I kind of still enjoyed it because it's like programming is such a different like tool. You can see what you do right there in front of you. If you like if you made a mistake, you will see it, right? And if you fix it, it will run. It's like such a quick feedback, and it's like so action oriented, which I love. And with like just with that comparing to finance, which I used to do, it's like we prove a loan or financing. It could be like, you know, like a couple million or $100 million, but you don't feel the participation in that process. You just feel like you're giving money away. Like why does that, like how do I feel, how come I don't feel I'm involved in this process? But with software developing, I feel like with like how much I have learned, like you're so hands-on, you're like doing everything with a team or by yourself, and then you can see the results right there in front of you, which is so different than like finance. And that's what I love about software development or just like programming in general. I don't know if like any of you feel the same about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Heidi. I think when I was like working in tech, but in sales and marketing, I was definitely missing the like being challenged at work. And something that I tend to keep in mind was like, if when I was like during like my 9 to 5, I would constantly like look at the clock, like when is it gonna be 5? Like when do I get to clock out? But when I like was coding, I think I got into that flow state and the hours like seemed to pass by. And I think that if if you know that like if you are looking for a career, like I ask myself like what is something that I would like to spend my time, or like at least 8 hours of my time on, and like wouldn't mind and wouldn't be like constantly looking at the clock um, to get out. Yeah.
Brittany, did you have anything you wanted to add, or are you good?
Yeah, I mean, I would just add that, I mean, it wasn't something that like, I didn't solve my first code challenge and go, oh my God, this is like the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. But I found like a lot of satisfaction and joy in it. And it, like, I don't have a degree, and I, you know, it seems so out of this world for this to ever be a job that I could do, that even something that I could consider. And so when I discovered Ada and that whole world opened in front of me, it took me some time to really be like, but is this for me? Like, is this a thing that I could see myself doing day in and day out? Or is the imposter syndrome level of like, but could I really do that? Am I really smart enough to do something like that? Like, is that really for the kind of person that I am? I had to dig into that for a while. And, you know, I ultimately made the decision after I kept trying and continue to enjoy the process of learning. So I would also just say to give yourself time, that, you know, I didn't fall in love with it the day that I discovered it, but I did fall in love with it over time.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And so this next question is, what did you do to prepare for the application? What was most helpful? And do you have any advice on how to best prepare? And I know there are 2 reapplicants on the panel, so if you also kind of want to talk about your experience with reapplying, feel free to hit on that as well.
So for my application, so I only applied once to Ada. I got in on my first try. I was very fortunate. For my application, I treated it like it was a class. So I made myself like a mock syllabus. I can share it on Twitter later as like a JPEG, but I made myself a mock syllabus and I was working full time. And so my time to study was basically like 5:30 p.m. to like 9. And then I had to get ready for my next day of work. So having that grit and that discipline with yourself to get the basics of coding down, you don't have to do anything like wild. The way I want people to think of the application and what helped me is think of coding as you need to teach yourself the alphabet. And if you know the alphabet, Ada is going to teach you sentences and they're going to teach you paragraphs. And then you're going to go internship and they're going to teach you novels. So if you can get those basics down and know them well, like forward and backward, you'll be okay. My best advice for anyone who is preparing, because there is a lot out there from former applicants, and just be very careful of what you ingest with that information. And I say that because I saw a lot of people like asking like, how can I like cater it for my best chances? And there's no secret, like there's no there's no like one type of person that Ada wants. I know Tram could probably second this, and that our cohort, not a single one of us are exactly alike. Everyone came from such different backgrounds, such different personalities, and we all made it, and we all made it to internship. So be yourself and be genuine, and you're gonna do well if you do those things.
Yeah, I definitely echo everything that Sophia says. Something that I also did in prepping for the application was that I just like reached out to past 80s to ask them about their experience and how they liked Ada, just to find out more about the program to see if it was a good fit for me. I also would suggest really solidifying your why. So why Ada? Why software development? Why now? I think those are the core questions that did come up for the application, especially on the essays. So knowing your why is super, super important. And for me, I think I started to prep for the application like a few months before it started or like it opened. Um, I remember being in y'all's shoes and like listening to this info session like a year ago. And I think one of the question was asked of like, how many hours did it take you to like prepare? It's going to vary by people to people, but for me specifically, I think I dedicated like 50 hours of like coding and preparation. So if that number makes you less anxious, or if like it gets you like a goal to go for it, like go for it, but like don't feel the need to like you need to hit 50 hours. Um, and then I would say also like try to go through the Ada build like daily. I know that that might be hard, but like I would say if you have 20 minutes a day, do it instead of like jamming it all over the weekend. Daily practice and consistent practice is like really important in solidifying the foundations.
I think I agree with both of what you all shared. So I would want to share a little bit about what was my experience like when I first applied and my second time. I remember in March of 2020, I didn't know much about the coding challenge language. At that time, they were Ada was doing in Ruby. So I only knew about HTML and CSS, and that was the reason I guess I didn't make it through. I didn't got invite after I submitted my coding challenge, but I remember getting prepared for the second time. Um, it was, I would say the advice would be that because Ada have like the three phases of the application, treat each phases as it is. Like, you know, the first time you're like first application process is you write an essay about yourself and why you're interested in software development, you know, and all those essay Q&A sort of answers. And there's also a data analysis portion, and you submit that. And then second phase is more like a coding challenge. So all of these three phases, you prepare, you know, you just give your 100%, I would say. And before applying to Ada, you know, finish the Ada build. That is really helpful for the coding challenge. And I think it's more about yourself. Just find out, like, really sort of do self-reflection on why you really want to be part of Ada. I think that was really important. Sort of finding out why you really interested in Ada and what Ada can, you know, what you're interested in software development, why you want to be part of Ada and what Ada can do, you know, offer you to get there. So I think that was a really important to do, you know, self-reflection when you're writing essay. And just be yourself. And I remember even when I was applying to the second time and I knew about Python that time, I spent like 6 months studying, but I still didn't feel 100%. And the fact of the matter is, I think you'll never feel 100% ready. And but then I guess that's just life in general. Like, you know, you don't feel 100% ready to go. You just go ahead and do it, even if you don't feel 100% ready, even if you don't feel like you know it all. And that's okay. And that's how it's supposed to be. And so just apply. If you're here, you're already, you know, 99 of you here are here today. Just apply. You're never going to feel 100% ready. Try your best, give your 100%, and the rest is, you know, just leave it out there. So
Yeah, and I also want to add on to Sumitra's point about the essays, and I feel like she was saying, it's like why Ada this time, and what Ada can, or what Ada can, how Ada can help you, but also it's like how you can help Ada in return. Because I feel like it's a two-way kind of help, that Ada is also like looking for, well, when I was looking at Ada's mission, I just feel like, you know, Ada is definitely looking for students who don't just treat this, you know, academy 1 year as this, you know, as a academy into a bridge into the tech world, but also carrying out its mission of, you know, promoting diversity in the tech industry. So, you know, if you feel strongly about that, which is Ada's mission, you should definitely highlight that, that you can give back even after you graduate from Ada. And that's the essay part. And then I think for the code challenge, like what Sumitra was saying about learning, like dedicate, and Tram saying all like dedicating a lot of time to practice coding. And I also want to add one point is just, yeah, like everyone's saying you're never 100% sure, like ready, but just know Google is your best friend, and Stack Overflow will always help you. If you don't know something, just look it up. But like, and don't be afraid to break things when you're coding. Like if you break and crash, that's like totally normal. I just remember when I first started learning Python, I would like purposely just break a function, kind of see different ways to code something, but get the same result. And then that really helped me getting comfortable, kind of like practicing towards the code challenge. And then, but I will still freak out when I feel like the code challenge is just way above my knowledge, is some parts. And but I think after you get so frustrated so many times, you kind of just, you know, Google it and try to figure things out and then see if it works. Like, yeah, so don't freak out. If you don't know something, just Google it and use Stack Overflow like many times. I feel like those helped me like kind of mentally, and also, yeah, really mentally, because even nowadays when I'm working on pre-Ada homework, there are things that I don't know, and I'm like, HTML is so new to me. I've never even looked at HTML before, and I look at it and I just feel like, oh, I don't know any of this, but I just remember, oh, I can always Google it. So it helps me mentally at least. So I would pass on this, yeah, to everyone.
Awesome. And so the last prepared question that we have is for C14, what has been your favorite part about Ada so far? And for C15, if you feel like you can't answer that yet, what are you looking forward to most before beginning? What are you looking forward to most before beginning class on Monday?
Yeah, so for me, I had a little bit of unique experience in that I lived 2 blocks from the Ada office. And so during our time, I was able to like go in and use the Wi-Fi when I needed it. And I got to meet a lot of the staff in person, which a lot of my cohort haven't. And I think my favorite part about Ada because of that is the people. Like Jane is awesome. And I have to give like a shout out to Pukusu, and like the whole staff was just always so welcoming. And like I said, it's not going to be easy. It'll be rewarding, but won't always be easy. And I had some really like rough mental health weeks, and the staff is so supportive and they're so kind. And I have to like also extend like my comment about how great people are to like my cohort mates. Like I've never met such an incredible group of people, and you're going to feel the same way in your cohort. Just people that are like so passionate and just so caring. And it's not, if you went to university, it's not like university where it's very competitive. It's like who's has the highest GPA or who had the best projects. It's a very level playing field, and you get out of it what you put in. And so the more you like support your cohort mates, the more that you get back. So yeah.
I 100% agree with that. I haven't started yet, but my favorite part about Ada so far has definitely also been the people. literally every single person I've come in contact with since I started the application process has genuinely wanted me to be successful. And I think that's so incredible about this community is everyone just really wants to see everyone else succeed. It is, we're all doing this really big, scary, difficult thing, but all we want is to like bring more people up with us and to help everyone else get through it. The faculty and staff have been so supportive. I've had so many people just reach out to check in on me and make sure that I'm okay and like getting ready for this process and for class to start. And I've never felt more supported in an environment going to do something life-changing and big and scary like this. So that has far and away been my favorite part about Ada so far.
I'm also looking the most towards just like whatever journey brings me, and then yeah, just I'm planning to take a couple days off, hopefully after homework is done, and then just like relax and rest my mind, and then just like take what's thrown at me and then just run with it for like 100 miles an hour, probably for the next 6 months. But I'm really looking forward to that. And then also like, and I just feel like I never feel stupid asking a question. We have a Slack group. Everyone's very supportive and everyone jumps in, try to help. And then like, I also try to, and like if I see questions I can't help, I'll also try to like jump in and throw in something, even if I don't know even if I'm 100% sure, but I feel like there's some parts I know I could still help. And I feel like that's how everyone is. And instructors are, like Brittany was saying, like they will reach out to you, making sure you're okay and letting you know like where you should be before class starts. So you're not like behind on homework or behind on anything, which it's very like everyone's very supportive. I just wish I could be in Seattle so I could see everyone, but I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, adding on to like what everyone has said, like the community of Ada, so supportive, like from the very beginning to now to like on forever. Like you'll have that community be alongside you and like lift you up, which is really supportive. In the program, what I liked a lot about it was, well, first of all, Ada is such a quality program. Like to have a program that is tuition free, like I was searching for programs. I was like, where can I go and learn code for free? And such high placement rate also. I was like so surprised. So I was like, I gotta apply for this program. And while I was in it, I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised by just how non-competitive and collaborative it was. I think from my past experience, and I think you all can relate of like being graded in school and like throughout your academic career of like you get a 95, you get an 85. Like there's nothing of that in Ada. We have levels like red, green, and yellow, which is kind of to show you if you're hitting the learning goals, but you're not stack ranked against your other peer mates, and your grade or yeah grade, those levels won't even affect internship, or it won't really affect anything. It's just will show you how you're tracking towards like the learning goals, and it's really for you to take into account so you can like better yourself, instead of like competing with other people.
I agree with everyone that Ada is such a wonderful community to be part of, and I don't know why my video is so blurry now, but and I'm really looking forward to connecting with everyone and learning. And this is a really, life-changing journey for all of us being part of Ada, and we're literally changing career from whatever profession or type of work that we come from, and we're going into a world that is as complex as, as exciting, as complicated as any other profession. So I'm really looking forward to connecting with everyone, building that community, and hopefully after Ada, I will be able to give back to the community as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. So that brings us to the end of our prepared questions. So we'll go ahead and open it up for a general Q&A. So if you're an attendee, you'll be able to see a Q&A option on your screen. Please use that to submit your questions. I just ask that you refrain from asking very individualized questions about personal situations, just because that can be easily answered if you email us at admissions. So for panelists, I'll go ahead and read aloud the question and feel free to chime in as much or as little as you like. But let's see. For the first question, were any of you working while attending the program? And for C15 students, maybe you can kind of talk about what your day-to-day looks like, just so people can get an idea of the hourly commitment you had each day.
Yeah, so as far as I know, none of us worked. And I do not suggest anyone trying to work. I do know one cohort mate who's amazing, but she did start ADA working and didn't tell them, and she was very overwhelmed, and it took some extra work on her end to catch up. It's a full-time program. It's not like an online class you can just do in the evening after work. It takes a lot out of you, and it takes a lot of grit, and you have to be committed to it. So for me, I had to use the loan in order to do that. But I would not suggest working. I can't say it any more clear than that. Because one thing or the other will suffer for sure.
Yeah, I didn't work also. So for me, kind of like what my schedule looked like was like I woke up and I thought about ADA, and then I went to sleep thinking about ADA, and I dreamed about code. So I would say like probably like 8 to 10 hour that I dedicated per day on the weekday. I think there's more flexibility on the weekend. Like I don't think ADA expects you to be coding over the weekend to complete assignments if that's something that you're like not down to do. I did find for like my mental health and for my like anxiety that I started like next week lessons on Sunday, because I like thought that it would be nice to at least get acquainted with what we're learning on Monday and Tuesday. So I know what is coming at me. So if that's something that I also think that's really nice about like the flexibility that ADA provides, especially being online now, so that you get access to the week's material like a week or 2 weeks in advance. I mean, sometimes it does change. So look out for that. But for the most part, it stayed consistent, which allowed us to peek ahead if we wanted to.
Awesome. And so while you all were applying for ADA, how did you take care of your mental health?
Yeah, I can share a little bit about that. I know that ADA application is longer than many other bootcamp that are out there. If you have done a little bit of research, or I looked into other coding bootcamp. So definitely there are a lot of waiting period after you submit the application, and there are different phases. So you definitely need to sort of take care of your mental health in a way that works for you, right? Like self-care is thing that you one thing work for one person, and it's a different for different people. But for me, I generally enjoy like building websites, and I was creating a lot of website that was like putting up pictures of my mom garden on the website and building that, and it really gave me joy. And at that time I was also working, so it was sort of hard to do a self-care, and but at the same time, like you do need to focus on that and be positive that even though ADA is a long process, so, you wait for several months, you go on to doing several application phases. So definitely develop, taking a walk, or, maybe connecting with other people, like people who have gone through ADA, or people who are gonna apply for C16. I know there's a Discord account that you can all join, and there are a lot of ADs, and even I'm in there. So you can reach out to other people who are going through the similar experiences as you, connect with them, and that could be a great self-care. I don't know, but yeah.
And I'll also add on to that. It's I think like, so I just remember the first time when I applied to it and I didn't hear back after the data challenge or the code challenge. I was literally devastated. I waited and waited for like weeks, and I was just like, I was so sad, and I was so like depressed. I would even say at one point, which is not good. That is not how like I should have felt, but I felt really like upset because I really wanted to get an ADA, but I wasn't ready at the time. So for my second try, I think what I did a little bit differently was I took one step at a time. Like, don't think too ahead, or at least for me, like don't think too ahead of myself. Like if I'm in round one, I'm gonna make sure I do 100%. I want like round one. It was round two for code challenges. Focus at that. Like either talking to like reaching out to previous addies about like their experience, or asking them how their experience was. But just kind of like what helped me was just focusing one round at a time, and like don't get too excited or too sad if you didn't hear back like the next day, because I heard back pretty quickly after like my first, and then I think my first round, and then my second, which is my code challenge. I heard back pretty quick, but I also know other like eddies who got in that they didn't hear back like after a week or 2 weeks, but they heard back eventually. So don't take, but yeah, and also working out really helped. I made sure I got plenty of, exercise when I was applying, because it is a long journey. It takes about 2.5 months. And it's, yeah, just mental health is, you have to be positive, but not too, not too negative or too positive. Just focus on the current state. That would be my advice.
So for this next question, have any of you experienced imposter syndrome since you came into the program with little to no coding experience? And if so, how do you deal with it?
I will dive into that one. I experience imposter syndrome every day. I definitely, it was such a huge like shift in thinking for me. Like I didn't go to college. I don't have a degree. I very much felt like there was this baked in societal idea that I have no business in the tech world, that it's not the kind of place that people like me get to be in. And hearing about ADA and seeing their mission statement to change that societal baked in expectation was so moving for me that it inspired me to like take on this new journey in my life. But the imposter syndrome is real, and it is really difficult to handle. I found that the community of like having other people around me who are willing to talk about that sort of a thing has been super helpful. I don't think that there are many of us in especially my cohort or the people that I've connected with so far in my cohort that don't feel that sometimes, you know? So I think that finding that community, there's tons of online communities of women and gender diverse people in the tech industry or who are trying to get into the tech industry who talk about these things. And so you can find them online and talk with other people about them. But yeah, it's super common, and I find that just finding that community is the best way to try to deal with it so far for me.
Yeah, so I think for me, I was telling Jane right before we started this call that I was listening to this panel about the same time a year ago. So it's very full circle. And it was like one of the last in-person things before COVID. And I rushed out of the Q&A once it was all done. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get in. Like, this isn't for me. If you didn't catch it earlier when I was talking, I dropped out of college. So I did not finish college. I dropped out my senior year for a multitude of reasons. And so for a long time, I felt like very stuck. And so when I found Ada, and then when I got into Ada, it was very hard to get rid of the imposter syndrome and get rid of the idea like, oh, did they like admit me by mistake? Like, was it like a clerical error? But you belong here. Like, if you want to be here, you belong here. And no one is ever going to make you feel like because of your background or because of your experience or your education, like you're not supposed to be here. And I have a little bit of imposter syndrome now with internship, but the entire team is like so supportive and they love Ada and know that like that bridge from classroom to internship, you're going to be supported the same way. Ada wouldn't leave you with people who are going to put you down in any way.
Awesome. So I know our program was normally supposed to be in person, and all of that has been kind of thrown into a loop. So can you talk a little bit about your experience with the remote program and how that's been? And maybe cohort 15 students, if you want to talk about your onboarding experience, you can as well, if you'd like to contribute in that way.
Yeah, so for me, when I found out that Ada was going to be remote, I was like a little bit bummed because what drew me to Ada was definitely like the in-person and the community aspect of it. So I felt like some community was going to be lost online, but having spoken to a lot of other people, um, there's always like pros and cons. And with an online course, even though it is harder to initially like make those connections, I think it also gives us a lot of flexibility. So if you're someone like if you're a mom or if you have other family duties, like I have to pick my mom up from work, and it allowed me to have that space and that time to pick her up and do other errands throughout the day. So like the flexibility that the remote program allows people is a really great opportunity to kind of like do the program at your own pace. Yeah.
Just to clarify, the question was how are we liking the online thing or how did we like it? Okay, just making sure. It was good. I think the pro of this, we were the first cohort to be completely online. And I would say the pro is a lot of the lectures are recorded. So I would say be ready to dedicate at least like 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. to Ada. But for people that have kids, I think it was really beneficial because they can still be at home and they don't have to like look for childcare. There is childcare available through Ada. But I don't know, for me, it worked. I have ADHD, and so sometimes it didn't work because it was very hard to find the motivation to sit there and watch like an hour of videos. But overall, they adapted really well, and the format is really great. So as long as you put in the work, I think you'll be fine with the online format.
I think as a C15, well, we haven't started the whole, cohort yet, but we've been doing pre-courses, and so far it's been, I mean, when we're not in the same classroom, like, physically, yes, it is harder to make connection, but at the same time, Ada has been so amazing to connect all of us, through peer mentoring, or we have like body system that we can mentor with each other, or we've been texting with people in the classroom. So there are things that Ada is doing really amazingly, dispute the fact that we are living in a time where we have no control over. So I think for C16, you don't necessarily have to worry about not getting the experience. That's what I at least feel, just being doing pre-courses. So yeah.
And I also feel Ada really makes sure like there are more like everyone's saying, there are multiple programs that everyone can be involved in to learn differently. There's like the mentor program you can ask, and there's like instructor 101, and there's like TA session. I'm still trying to like remember everything because there are too many, and I just haven't had time to like look over everything yet. But I know there's so many resources, and they're like student pots that I think 4 to 5 students are encouraged to work together. And I think there's also like a 1 hour every day that people meet up and work. That's like designated time that they're working. It's either early in the morning or right before lunch, which I find very helpful because I can work on my own for a little bit, and I can like gather in groups, asking questions. It's just incredible there how many supporting programs there are. And I feel like Ada is like basically like moving everything offline to online, but we just need to log on, make sure we're there when the programs are on. So
How do elements of social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion show up in the curriculum at Ada?
So before Ada started, Ada partnered with this company called Paradigm Shift, where they would host talks that the ADs would attend to kind of like discuss a lot of topics around social justice and inclusion. So I think we were able to learn a lot from that experience. But throughout Ada, I think just um, little things here and there, like using inclusive language instead of like saying, I know that when we first started, we were saying like, hey guys, what's up? Like, how are you guys doing? And I think we were more mindful of like using more inclusive terms such as like, hey y'all, or like, hi you all, instead of it being so gendered. So that was something that I really appreciated and learned throughout the program to keep using really inclusive language in the way that I talk.
Sorry, I keep losing my mute button. But what is the most exciting to you in the world of software development, and how do you hope to apply your skills after the program?
I am just excited by the possibility of there's always something new. There's always something new to build. There's always the space for creativity. And so for me, I'm looking forward to in a few months working as a full-time software engineer, but it's that whole process of learning something new right now that's really exciting. So as overwhelmed as like maybe we'll get with internship, I go in every day and I leave with something I didn't know before. And I think that's a really great part of the industry, is just always having that room for growth.
I mean, for me, I think especially when we look at the ADA's mission to, put more women and gender diverse people in tech, it's not just, um, it's a big deal, right? Like historically, this profession has been dominated by one gender, right? Predominantly male gender. So it's a big shift that ADA is doing, and we definitely have to look at the bigger picture when we think about putting more diverse people in tech. What are we going to be doing when we get in those spaces at the table where everybody use technology these days, right? Like our parents, our brother, sister, no matter who we are, what part of the world we live in. And so we really need to have that representation on creating and building things that is used by so many millions and billions of people across the world, right? So um, that really makes me excited and to be part of that change, right? However I can be. So
Can any of you provide examples of personal projects that you have worked on?
Yeah. So for my capstone for Ada, I did a mobile app. It was kind of like Tinder for dogs. So you could match with other dog owners and schedule like a walk date with them or and their dogs. Um, and for the curriculum, so some of the projects that we did like a rideshare project, and then we also did like an e-commerce project. That's one of like the big group projects that Ada or at least C14 did. Um, yeah, and one thing that I really like about my journey so far is that I used to in my notes used to like come up with ideas or like websites to build, but I never like before Ada, I was like, I could never do this, or like I could, but it would take me a long time. And one day I was like laying in bed, I'm like, holy crap, I would know how to do this if I put in the effort. And now I actually built something that I've like thought about for a long time. So that was like really rewarding, and it like was really exciting for me to realize that.
Yeah, so for my capstone, if you're not familiar what capstone is, it's like the last like 3 or 4 weeks of Ada classroom portion. You build a project totally on your own from the ground up. So for mine, I also did something with dogs, Tramp. I did a app, well, it was a website, but a website where a user could make a profile of a pet. And so they have like pet cards, and the cards would hold information like vaccination records and microchip numbers, their age, whatever. And you can also add notes in the app. So that by far is probably the largest thing I've built. But Ada prepares you for it. And before that, I had a blog. So I built a blog when I was applying to Ada. I think there's only like 3 posts on it. But I use WordPress. And I think WordPress is great if you're trying to get some practice with HTML because it's very structured. So you can switch between HTML and the app, and it kind of allows you a little bit of space to learn how things are formatted in HTML without really having to know the nitty gritty of it. So yeah, I think that's the largest thing I've built.
How did you all approach the data challenge and coding challenge of portions of the application?
For the data challenge, I fortunately had a little bit of experience with Excel, so I primarily used Excel to approach that. For the coding challenge, outside of like excessive amounts of studying and going through the Ada Build program, I think the thing that was most helpful was practicing talking about my code. I talked about my code to my dogs. I talked about my code to my best friend. I talked about my code to inanimate objects. I slept and woke and ate my food and did everything thinking about and trying to like practice talking about it, because it really helps solidify my understanding. And then trying to explain it, especially to someone who has no idea what you're talking about, also really helps solidify my understanding, because I really had to like get down to the fundamentals of it to be able to talk about it to somebody else. So those would be like my big takeaways from that. For the actual like data challenge in the application process, I understood that it's the most important thing is to just like really go through like your flow of thought. Like, how did you move through each logical concept of it, not the answer. So I spent some time like stressing about like, did I get the right answer? I need to double and triple check this. But I think the most important thing was just like showing how you thought about trying to get to the answer, and that you like followed a logical stream of thought.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And when I was applying, I think Ada had like the past cohort data challenge online somewhere. And then I just did that practice before the application came out. And then like passed it on to my friend to like read it to see if it made sense in terms of like logically, and if my thought process was clear enough. Um, so yeah, doing the past challenges I found was really helpful in preparing for the upcoming one.
And I also feel the Ada build is very, very helpful. Like I feel like if you could understand and kind of do the everything in Ada build, and then also like do the practice of the code challenge, like I feel like that should prepare you pretty well. And I don't think we had the practice code challenge for cohort 15. So you guys have like additional kind of things you can prepare with. So that's good for y'all.
Also, another thing that I want to mention here is that Ada have this program to go through the Ada build for underrepresented minorities. I don't know if Jen mentioned that in the presentation earlier, but if you're coming from Latinx, African American, Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, Native, you can go through the before Ada like application. I think I'm not sure, they have 2 more classes to go before the application, so you can attend that. And I heard it's helpful, but I wasn't eligible because I'm Asian. So, but yeah, if you're fall into that category, feel free to attend.
Awesome. And just a couple more questions. How do you have any advice for balancing personal life while you're in the program?
I live alone, so I moved to Seattle and I don't really know anyone here. I have a couple of friends from college that live up here. So I very much have been quarantined in this apartment. It's kind of easy to not have a social life with COVID. It's so like I FaceTime friends, and I visit my family every, I don't know, like 4 weeks or something. So I would just say your priority needs to be the class, just to make sure you're keeping up with everything, but it's totally possible to still have a social life and still have a personal life. You just have to like weigh out your priorities of, you know, what you should do that night.
Yeah, for me, I just like from because I'm on the central time zone, I from 4 my time to like 6, I would just like disconnect from my computer and just like go out for a walk or like eat dinner and not touch the computer at all. Um, and then do another like night routine of like being really focused and working on the assignments. So that was really helpful. Just like remember to take a lot of breaks in between, because sometimes you can get sucked into your code and it's been like 3 hours and you haven't moved any muscle in your body. Um, but I think Ada also stresses like balance and your mental health. So really know yourself and know that Ada is a marathon and not a sprint. Like some weeks I didn't really like do my best in terms of coding. But I gave myself that grace of like, you don't have to be working at like 100% every single week. Um, yeah.
So it looks like we are kind of running low on time. So this will be the last question. But for our panelists today, now that you're on the other side, you've made it into the program for C14, you're now in your internships. What, if anything, would you do differently when you were applying to this program?
I think I probably would have given myself a little more grace. I really went like all the way in this application process, and at literally every turn was convinced that I didn't make it in. Like it's fine. Like and like I just really like wrapped myself up in this whole like nervous energy throughout the whole thing. Like every day that passed by that I didn't get an invitation to the next round, I like doom and gloom convinced myself that I didn't make it in. You know, most people don't make it in on your first try. And like I would talk myself through this cycle of like, okay, so then I'm going to apply again. And like I'm committed to this, it's going to happen. But I really like neglected like giving myself a little bit of grace and a little bit of positivity during the process. And I think that if I could go back, I would be a little kinder to myself.
So I actually found out about Ada a year prior to my application to Ada. And if I were to go back, I didn't apply the year prior because I thought I caught the application a little bit too late. Like it was about to start or like about to open. And I was like, I'm not prepared yet. But if I had to go back and give myself an advice would be to like apply. I think if you know and if you're really positive that you want to go on this route, like the application opens March 15 and it doesn't close until April 5th. So you have a month. And if you are really like strategic about it, I would focus on like how to just get past the first phase, right? And it's like the essays, the data challenge, and really focus on that and spend your time doing a little bit of Ada build. But if you are really like short on time, just make sure that you have everything ready for phase one, and apply. Yeah.
I would add reach out to people. I think that's really important, even if you're not directly asking for, you know, whatever support you need for the application. Just reaching out and having that human connection that who have gone through the experience was really helpful for me. And I think during my first application, I didn't reach out to anybody. And when I was working on my cohort 15 application, I reached out to a couple of ADs and they were really, really, really sweet. Yes, they didn't help me with my coding challenge. They didn't write me essay, but they were there whenever I had any concern or any question about at the application. So I would say reach out. Everybody at Ada want you to be successful, want you to come to Ada, and or be successful in tech, because we want more diversity in tech in general. So yeah.
Definitely want to echo what everyone has said so far, and also just add that when you're looking at this application process, and especially when like you are communicating with other people applying, don't worry about their timelines. Like, don't like sit online and worry about like, oh, they got an answer back and I like I put mine in right before them, because it will drive you up a wall. Just zone all that out and focus on yourself, because a year from now, it's not going to matter who else got in. It's going to matter if you got in, if you put your best foot forward. So yeah, definitely give yourself grace, and apply even if you don't know if you're ready all the way. I almost didn't turn my application in. And if I didn't turn my application in, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. So take that chance, like take that leap, and yeah, you'll be fine. Do your best.
And also, like, don't get discouraged if you don't get in on your first try. Ada doesn't really count. Or I've from what I've heard, and Jane, you can probably like say if it's right or not, but I've heard that Ada actually, when they see that you have applied multiple times, that they really encourage you, like they see the grit in you, and then they like you reapplying multiple times. Like if so, like reapplication is not discriminated. And both me and Sumitra got in on the second try, and like yeah, and I feel like even if we got in on the second try, but first try was still very helpful, because we see the process of like what worked, what didn't work. And then I know that I wasn't like, when I got my code challenge, I didn't even start my pre-Ada build. Like I was literally studying Ada build when the code challenge started. So I had only like 3 days to finish the program or the code challenge. And of course my program wasn't good, or wasn't, I wasn't ready. But like the next time I know like I have to finish kind of feeling good about my, some skill sets before the code challenge starts, and then I just feel much more prepared during that time. Yeah, so and then please don't give yourself a deadline like I have to get in this year. Like I didn't even apply to any other bootcamp because Ada was the only academy I wanted to get in, because this is like with its mission, and then also the sorry, I just forgot about that word. With the coursework, the internship and support and everything, like this is the only one I really want to get in. So I had friends telling me, like the ones that know about Ada, they said, Ada's really hard to get in. Like you should think about your alternative options. And I was like, no, I'm not going to think about my alternative options, because I'm not going to dedicate energy to other boot camps that I don't feel, right about. And I only dedicate my energy to this one. And I didn't think about like if I would get in or not. I just did give my 100% every round. And second try. So, yeah, I just want to encourage everyone to like, don't give up. Even if you don't get in on your first try, keep on applying, and then you will be there.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing your experiences. I do want to acknowledge that we are 5 minutes over time. So thank you, panelists, for staying 5 extra minutes. But for the rest of the attendees, if you have additional questions that didn't get answered, you can always email us at admissions@adadevelopersacademy.org. But that brings us to the end of our session for today. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Hope this was a very informative experience for you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.